Hello and welcome to the channel. My name's Peter and today we're going to be talking about how to grow your abs so that in the summer when you step out of the ocean onto the beach, the abs are absolutely popping with the sun glistening off them. Right, abs are not made in the kitchen, they're made in the gym through hard work like every other muscle group, and they are revealed in the kitchen. So yes, if you want visible abs, you need to get your nutrition in check, but that's not the topic for today. This is how to build your abs, best science-based exercises, and we'll get straight into it. So starting off with the first exercise, which for today is going to be a hanging leg raise. Now please don't mess these up. This is one of the easiest exercises to turn into a hip flexor march than any of them on the list. And the way we're going to do that is by trying to differentiate our core from our hip flexors by thinking about moving your pelvis. So tucking your tailbone under, called the posterior tilt of the pelvis, rather than raising your legs up in the air. The way in which you can do that is when you're hanging from the bar, keep your pelvis out in front of your arms rather than let it go behind. If it goes behind, you get a hip flexor raise. If it stays out in front, you're going to get a pelvic tilt. So hold on to the bar, soft bend in the knees, and from there think about showing your butt to whoever in front of you. Try not to lean back and turn it into a scapular exercise because that's just great for straight arm scapular strength, but try keep your head and upper back as still as you can, round your lower back and tilt the pelvis back and behind you. One of the key things for all the exercises that we're going to do today is you need to be able to progressively overload them. Just because the core is a muscle that everyone wants doesn't mean that you train it in any other way compared to any other muscle. So easiest way to do that is with a plate. So you can do it with bands too, but take a plate, pop it on your legs and don't let it fall like that. You can also do it with a sandbag or anything like that. And then from there, you just go into your hanging leg raises with the plate. And now, because I've taken this shot about 20 times, my core's absolutely knackered. So yeah, you get what I mean with the plate. So we'll head on to the next one. All right guys, the next exercise is going to be the cable crunch. Now this is my single favorite ab exercise. Why? It's so easy to progressively overload. The only problem with it is it's also really easy to mess up. The key to this one, as in all of them, is to keep your hip flexors out and your core in. It's a simple balance when training core, that's all you need. So the way in which we do that is, it's up to you whether you prefer legs back. Now for me, it puts pressure on the front knobbly bit on my knee, so I don't like it, but you can sit back and then crunch down, no problem with that, or you can be in a forward position or hips up and crunch down. Both are really good. However, if you combine the two and you start at the top and you crunch down, guess what? You've just created a brilliant hip flexor exercise. Now, with the hips locked in and crunching down, I find blowing out on my way down like this, I get a better contraction. There is a thing that you can do to make this even better, and that is to include some oblique work. So if you think about it, you've got two sets of obliques. You've got the ones on the outside called the external obliques, and they run down, creating that V taper. And then you've got ones underneath, which no one can see, but really functional, called the internal obliques, which run the opposite direction at 90 degrees. Now, we want the external obliques. Why? Because everyone can see them. The way in which we train them is kneeling down, get your comfortable position, be it forward or back. For me, that's forward. And you do your cable crunches with a twist. And it's as simple as that. Keep the hips dead still, cable crunches, and then cable crunches with a twist. I would say start off with the twist because it's a lot harder. When you fatigue, then you can rep out with some cable crunches as a mechanical drop set, or separate them into two sets where you go really heavy with the cable crunches, and then afterwards you do a back off set with some cable crunches with a twist. That's not the only way to train the obliques. You can also do it through hanging leg raises with a twist, but that's much harder to keep the hip flexors out, and this is just a better exercise. Alright, so for the next exercise, we're using the core as a stabilizer, but trust me, you will feel it absolutely light up if you do this exercise correctly. This is the exercise I see most people really cocking up in the gym because they just want to lay as flat as they can and then they want to pull it back as far as they can, and neither of those is the correct way to do the exercise. What you've got to think about again is the shape of your spine. You want to create a rounded shape, not an arched shape. So you want a flatter, rounded spine throughout the range of movement, and there's an easy, nifty trick to keep your hip flexors out. If you keep your hips in front of your knees throughout the entire movement, it will keep your hip flexors out of it. So if you watch me do it, now you can do it with an ab wheel, we just don't have an ab wheel, so we're using a bar with weights, which is a way to progressively overload it, make it harder. So keep your feet flat, don't have them up because then they can act as a rocking system. Hips forward and bar close to you. Go out as far as you can, squeeze your glutes, squeeze your butt, keep that rounded shape, and then slowly pull it back, keeping that rounded shape and the hips forward. What you don't want to do is this rep where you go out, you arch your back, then you come back and you sit there, because I mean, I felt that rep, I felt absolutely nothing, just my hip flexors, but the rest of it, really strong core engagement. And trust me on this one, this is a top tier exercise, shows really good core recruitment on EMG studies. All right guys, next up we have a heels to heaven. All you need for this is a bench, or if you don't have a bench, something to hold on to, so the bottom of a squat rack or anything like that. The key for this one is to keep your hip flexors out. As you'll see for the theme on every single good ab exercise, your hip flexors will want to take over the movement. But if you can keep them out, these exercises are just so much better. So for this one, I want you to think about one thing, and that's the arch between your back and the bench. If you're laying on the bench and you can get your hand between your back and the bench, that's not good. That means your core is let go. So we want that, again, that posterior pelvic tilt, flat back on the bench and keeping it through the movement. So from there, squeeze it. Now peel your spine up, layer by layer, going up and then coming down. And the last thing to touch the bench is your glutes, and repeat that movement. So really slow going down, let it round and come back. If you go up and you just let it drop and you have that arch, your core's let go and you won't feel it nearly as much. Trust me, slow and controlled is the order of the day for this exercise. If for some reason your legs are too light and you can't do it with enough load, same thing applies. You can use a little weighted ankle weight, or you could take a band, tie a band onto the bottom of the bench, loop your feet in the band and do it with a band. Trust me, that is so difficult, and most people can't do it with a band. So I wouldn't worry about it. Just do enough reps that your core basically gives in. The way you know when to stop this exercise is when your glutes hit the bench before your lower back. That means your core's given in. That's a good sign when to stop the exercise. All right, so for the next one, I've got the guys at the gymnastics center to thank for this one. Or I don't know if I should be thanking them or hating them, because it absolutely sucks, but it is one of the best core exercises I've done. It works the core under compression. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna pop our feet through the loops on the TRX. You can also do this on a rower, which I'll show you in a second, or gymnastics rings. Or if you don't have any, just use your socks on a slidey floor. That can also work. But the TRX is my favorite variation, and most gyms nowadays have them. So what we want to think about here is similar to before. We don't want this arch position of our backs. We want nice rounded, and we're just going to pull up, go back down, come up, go back down. Now what you don't want to do is drop down to that position and then hoik yourself up. You want to end off in a nice plank, butt squeezed, and then coming up. You can do it with knees bent, and that just gives you a slight better squeeze. Now this one's a bit trickier to progressively overload, but trust me, you probably won't need to, and if you do, you can use bands. You can anchor the band to something behind you, making it harder to come forward. Or we can head over to the rower, and I'll show you quite a nice little trick to get this one well overloaded. All right, so as I said, the next variant is going to be on the rower. So instead of hooking your feet in the TRX, you just put your feet on the seat of the rower. Now, if you have a normal rower, not a dynamic rower like this, so this one, the feet and the seat move, so you can't really attach the handle to the seat to provide resistance. But if you could, to make this exercise a lot more difficult, all you're going to do is attach the handle to this edge of the seat, and then as you pull forward, it will use the resistance of the fan to really overload the core. Unfortunately, this one doesn't do it, but I'll show you how to get onto the exercise. So into that press up position, walk yourself all the way back. Then from there, you're going to do exactly the same thing as what you did on the TRX. However, this one you can also do with bent knees. I find that this one is a lot heavier on the shoulders because you're higher up, almost going into that pike press up position, but you can really overload the core nicely if you use the resistance switch on the rower. Alright guys, please remember you need to be training your core all year round, not just 5 weeks before the summer, because unfortunately muscle takes longer to build, and yes, you'll be able to build more muscle in a bulk. So if you're bulking, use that time to really progressively overload all these exercises, add on as much weight as you can, and build as much muscle as you can, so that when it comes time to cut down in the summer, you'll have those shredded abs ready for everyone to see on the beach. Right guys, if you enjoyed the video, please smash that thumbs up button down below and hit that subscribe button for some awesome new content. Until then, I'll see you in the next one.